Fantasy. I became the personal follower of the crazy villain. Chapter 1. Brain storage. Save it here, baby. Come on, baby, take the medicine. In a luxurious villa, a charming young woman took out 2 blue pills from Balenciaga's black stockings and handed them to a handsome man beside her. Sister Lou, I've already eaten twice tonight, how about tomorrow? The man lying on the bed looked at the pills in the other person's hand with a troubled expression. Hearing this, the young woman narrowed her eyes slightly and stared at Jun Moran coldly. Why, have you found a new home and dislike your sister? I'm warning you, it's best not to forget who helped your sister find the best hospital and treat her. As soon as she finished speaking, she took out a wad of banknotes from the handbag beside her and threw it hard at Jun Moran's face. Don't you just want money? Why are you pretending to be noble? As the young woman spoke, she smashed out a wad of banknotes. The other party's extremely insulting behavior made Jun Moran feel angry. Although he is a freeloader, he also has a bottom line and dignity. How can he tolerate such humiliation? For a moment, he clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. The young woman did not realize the danger, so she continued to curse. Don't be so shameless, don't you dislike Qian Shao? There is 1 million in this card, as long as I make my sister happy tonight, it will all be. However, before she finished speaking, Jun Moran sat up suddenly. The next moment, with lightning speed, he snatched the pills from the opponent's hand and swallowed them without hesitation. Seeing this, the young woman was stunned for a moment. Then, a satisfied smile appeared on her face. Yes, this is my sister's good baby. Suddenly, Jun Moran felt a pain in his heart, and he fell softly on the bed. Hey, there are quite a lot of tricks. Are you asking your sister to help you see a doctor? The young woman murmured and stretched out her claws towards Jun Moran's strong chest muscles. At this moment, Jun Moran's body kept twitching, and the foam from his mouth kept spraying out. In just a moment, his head tilted and he became silent. I don't know how long it took, but Jun Moran's consciousness gradually woke up. When he saw the carved window lattice, sandalwood tables and chairs, and the room full of classical charm, he was stunned. The next moment, he felt a pain in his head, and a large number of memories poured into his mind. I actually transmigrate. Jun Moran murmured, his eyes filled with shock. He learned through his memory that he had actually been transmigrated into a fantasy novel he had read. My original name is Jun Moran, I am 18 years old this year, and I am now in the Tianjian sect, the largest sect in the world of cultivation in Dongzhou. His identity is that of the Holy Son of the Heavenly Sword sect, one of his personal followers. For some unknown reason, 10 years ago, he and 2 young men born on the same day, month, and year were taken to the sect by an elder of the Tianjian sect to practice with the son of the sect leader. However, his original qualifications were mediocre. 10 years later, his cultivation was still at the 4th level of the Qi training stage, not even as good as an ordinary handyman disciple. Fortunately, with his status as a follower of the Holy Son, no one dared to bully him. However, the original person had a strong self-esteem. He was eager to break through this retreat, but he never thought that the breakthrough would fail, and he eventually died of depression. Wait a minute, Jun Moran. The 4th level of Qi refining. I'm actually the follower of the big villain in the original book. The cannon fodder who was slapped to death by the protagonist and didn't even survive 3 chapters. He seemed to remember something and his eyes widened instantly. At this moment, there was a rapid knock on the door. Jun Moran, the Holy Son summoned us to the meeting hall. The voice interrupted Jun Moran's thoughts. He looked up and saw a young man over 2 meters tall and as tall as an iron tower hurriedly walked into the room. Through memory, I learned that this person was called Li Dali, and he had always had a good relationship with the original owner. Don't be stunned. We can't afford to keep the Holy Son waiting. After the words fell, Li Dali grabbed his arm and walked towards the door. Along the way, Jun Moran's thoughts were racing, and he was thinking about a serious question. Are you running away or running away? After all, he has an advantage that is beyond ordinary people. That is, having a clear understanding of oneself. In his previous life, he was a scumbag who bowed to the real society and was forced to eat soft food. Although he has some backbone, but not much. Now that he has come to such a fantasy world of immortal cultivation, he doesn't think that with his poor modern knowledge, he can punch my son who has the qualifications of the great emperor, and kick the poor male protagonist who doesn't bully the young man. He is just an ordinary person with only a trace of moral bottom line. How can he fight against those monsters with extraordinary talents? After a while, a magnificent hall appeared in front of the two people. At the entrance of the main hall, a thin young man with a delicate face was waiting for something anxiously. When he saw the two figures, the young man's eyes lit up and he hurried over. I think you two are too courageous. You dare to make the Holy Sun wait for so long and you don't want to live anymore. Only our Holy Sun has a kind heart, so. Before the other party could speak, Li Dali interrupted directly. Okay, Wang Er, please stop nagging, we will go and apologize right now. After the words fell, he walked towards the main hall first. Seeing this, Jun Moran and Wang Er hurriedly followed. In the main hall, a man with sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes, a cool temperament and a hint of evil, dressed in white, was lazily leaning on the seat. His expression is comfortable and his posture is elegant, giving people a feeling of spring breeze. Li Dali and Wang Er hurriedly bowed and saluted. I am late, please be punished by the Holy Sun. Jun Moran stared blankly at the Holy Sun in front of him, his eyes full of disbelief. Ekin Cheng. Hearing his exclamation, the two people beside him secretly said something bad and hurriedly reached out and tugged at the corners of his clothes. Hearing this, Saint Chu Xinghe raised his eyebrows and looked at the little follower in front of him who had been with him for 10 years with interest. Oh. What is Zhengyi's sword? When Jun Moran came back to his senses, he found that the Holy Sun was looking at him with a smile in his eyes, and there was no trace of anger on his face. His brain was working rapidly, thinking about how to explain. The next moment, he knelt on the ground with a plop. This sword is a story that my subordinate accidentally read in a picture book. It is said that demons were rampant in ancient times, and an eternal genius appeared in the human race. The opponent was born with a sword like a holy sun. Not only was he handsome in appearance, but he also had a righteous heart. He has been slaying demons with one sword for 60 years, all the way from the mortal world to the divine world. He has killed no demons in the world who dare to appear in the world. It can be said that one sword radiates cold across 19 continents, and the sword energy stretches across 30,000 miles. Because he is an example of justice and only needs one sword to kill the enemy, so the world calls him, Righteous Sword. Speaking of this, Jun Moran looked at Chu Xinghe cautiously. Seeing that the other party looked very interested, he continued, I haven't seen him for a few days. The Holy Sun's demeanor is even better than before. It's like a banished immortal descending to earth, and like a bright moon in the endless night. It's so bright, so dazzling. Even with just one glance, the subordinates felt a sword energy full of justice coming towards them. The subordinate couldn't help but think of the characters in the storybook, and asked the Holy Sun to punish him. After the words fell, Jun Moran looked at Chu Xinghe with admiration. That look and gaze were like a devout believer who had seen a miracle. Chu Xinghe. At this moment, Li Dali and Wang Er lowered their heads. The corners of their mouths kept twitching, and it felt like 10,000 grass and mud horses were galloping past in their hearts. When it comes to flattering skills, the two of them are beyond comparison and are willing to be inferior. It's just that they never expected that after not seeing each other for a few days, the other party's verbal skills would become so good. You kid, you're still as glib as ever. Chu Xinghe chuckled lightly and waved his right hand lightly, and an invisible force swept out. The next moment, Jun Moran only felt his legs kneeling on the ground lighten up, and under the pull of a huge force, he stood up straight in an instant. He hurriedly crossed his hands and raised them above his head. He said loudly, the Holy Sun has a kind heart, enjoys immortal blessings forever, has a lifespan equal to that of heaven, will last for thousands of years, and will remain undefeated. As soon as these words came out, there was silence in the entire hall. Li Dali and Wang Er were stunned, although they didn't understand what the other party's gesture was. But he still couldn't help but admire in his heart. Hi, it's really too high. The two looked at each other and imitated Jun Moran's movements. They all said in unison, the Holy Sun has a kind heart, enjoys immortal blessings forever, has a lifespan as long as the sky, will last for thousands of years, and will remain undefeated. However, Chu Xinghe did not smile evilly as he imagined. His brows were furrowed, his expression a little solemn, and he stared at Jun Moran intently. Seeing this, Jun Moran's heart skipped a beat. It seems like you didn't say anything wrong, right? After he entered the main hall, he recalled his words and deeds in his mind and confirmed that there were no mistakes, but he still felt a little uneasy in his heart. After all, the person in front of him is the villain in the book who survived until the last chapter. Massacring cities and annihilating sects are commonplace in the eyes of the other party. Although the other party has not yet turned black because of that woman, who knows if he has become a psychopath long ago. At this moment, Chu Xinghe's plain voice sounded from his ears. You failed to break through. Hearing this, Jun Moran breathed a sigh of relief. He hurriedly and respectfully replied, the Holy Sun has a sharp eye, and I am ashamed that I have not been able to break through the 5th level of chi refining after so many years. Hey, although the journey of spiritual practice is like sailing against the current, if you don't advance, you will retreat, but you should not be too hasty. I see that your foundation has been damaged. Here is a heaven-building pill. You can take it. Quote. After he finished speaking, Chu Xinghe waved his right hand, and a white jade porcelain bottle fell steadily into Jun Moran's hand. What? Heaven-building pill. Upon seeing this, the three people in the venue immediately screamed in surprise. The heaven-building pill is a third-grade pill. It can not only repair the damaged foundation, but can even improve the qualifications of the cultivator. It is extremely precious. The elixirs are divided into 9 grades from low to high, 1st grade, 3rd grade. What is the concept of elixirs? Even for some large sects, it was a sect-suppressing treasure. Now that Chu Xinghe gave it to a small follower, how could everyone not be surprised? At this moment, even Jun Moran was a little moved. I have to sigh that the Holy Sun who has not yet turned black is indeed unparalleled in benevolence and righteousness. How about gathering some wool yourself and then running away? Thinking of this, he was about to express his impassioned words of thanks. At this moment, a voice sounded from his mind. Ding! The strongest follower system has been activated. It has detected that the host's identity is the follower of the Holy Sun of the Heavenly Sword sect, and it has automatically bound the target character Chu Xinghe. Ding! The system has been successfully bound. Any items contributed by the host to the target character will receive more powerful compensation from the system. The higher the other party's trust in the host, the higher the level of reward items they will receive. Similarly, if the target person gives any items to the host, he can also get system rewards. Ding! It was detected that the target person gave the host the 3rd grade elixir Butn Dan, reward, reward, reward. Listening to the voice in his mind, Jun Moran's face was filled with black lines. What's going on? I can understand activating the system, but this is the first time I've heard that the system can still freeze. However, he is also an open-minded person. If he can't figure it out, he won't think about it. Anyway, the system has been bound, can he still run away? At this moment, Jun Moran felt a heroic spirit in his heart, completely extinguishing his thoughts of escaping. I wanted to keep a low profile, but my strength didn't allow it. I am familiar with the plot of the original book, and now I have activated the system again. How can I lose this time? What kind of bullshit protagonist can compare with my Holy Sun? The Holy Sun treats me like a confidant, and I treat the Holy Sun like a brother and sister. The reason why I stayed was because I was impressed by the charisma of the Holy Sun. I am a grateful person, and it was definitely not because of the system. Well, that's it. With this thought in his mind, Jun Moran put the porcelain bottle in his hand into his arms at lightning speed. Then, he said loudly, on the top of the immortals, proud of the world, there is heaven with you, Holy Sun. From today on, Holy Sun, you are my subordinate's heaven. I am willing to be loyal to the Holy Sun, with a breeze on my sleeves, a bare heart on my back, and loyalty on all sides. I will not recognize my relatives in all corners of the world. Although your subordinates have dull qualifications, they are willing to be sharp blades in the hands of the Holy Sun, cutting through thorns and thorns for you and leveling the obstacles ahead. Even if he dies, he will still spray his blood on the enemy to show his sincerity. After the words fell, Jun Moran clenched his right fist tightly. That expression was even more determined than when he took the oath to join the young pioneers. Seeing this, the corners of Chu Xinghei's mouth twitched. Especially when I saw the other two clenching their right fists and making eye contact with each other. He hurriedly said, I have called you here today to inform you that you should go back and make preparations. Come with me to Qingyan sect tomorrow. This holy son will officially marry Qingzu as his wife. After the words fell, Chu Xinghei waved his hand. Upon seeing this, the three of them bowed respectfully. Yes, I will resign. After leaving the main hall, Jun Moran exchanged greetings with the two of them and then returned to his residence. He sat in front of the table, his expression extremely solemn. There is no other reason. According to the original trajectory, the day when the Holy Son welcomed the bride was the day when he died. And Chu Xinghei gradually embarked on the path of darkness precisely because of Tan Qingzu's green tea black heart lotus. In the original book, Tianjian sect and Qingyan sect have been on good terms for generations. 20 years ago, Chu Xinghei was born with a strange phenomenon. Thousands of swords roared in unison, a unicorn silhouette came out of the sky, and thousands of beasts paid homage, which can be said to have shocked the entire eastern continent cultivation world. 2 years later, the daughter of the leader of the Qingyan sect was born. Although her birth was not as shocking as Chu Xinghei's, it was also filled with thousands of auspicious colors and the chirping of hundreds of birds. Not long after, Tan Changfeng, the leader of the Qingyan sect, visited the Tianjian sect in person and made a marriage contract between his daughter and Chu Xinghei. Therefore, the two can be regarded as childhood sweethearts and have a very good relationship. Chu Xinghei gave almost half of his cultivation resources to the other party. Otherwise, with his monster talent, he might not only be at the middle stage of gold core. As everyone knows, there is a saying that is good. A brave girl is afraid of stalking a man, and a good girl is afraid of gangsters. Tan Qingzu met Yi Fan, the hero of the original book, 5 years ago. Although the other party comes from an ordinary family, he has an unruly temperament, a defiant personality, and the charm of a crooked smile. All of them deeply attracted Tan Qingzu's eyes. This is just like modern society. Huang Mao's lethality against those ignorant and obedient girls is absolutely overwhelming. Although Tan Qingzu had changed his mind a long time ago, he took Chu Xinghei's cultivation resources with peace of mind and gave them to his sweetheart. He even refused the other party on the day of their wedding, trampling on Chu Xinghei's dignity under his feet. And I, just because I scolded Tan Qingzu a few words, was beaten to ashes by Mark with a slap, not even a scum was left. Grass. Thinking of this, Jun Moran couldn't help but curse. The next moment, he took out the porcelain bottle in his arms and carefully placed the elixir in the palm of his hand. Looking at the third-grade elixir, a smile finally appeared on his gloomy face. What's the use of thinking so much? After all, you still have to rely on your strength to speak for itself. As soon as he finished speaking, he was ready to swallow the pill. At this moment, Jun Moran's palm was empty, and the sky-building pill disappeared in an instant, as if it had never appeared. He swallowed his loneliness and froze in place for a moment. For a while, his expression kept changing, and finally he seemed to remember something. Jun Moran cursed loudly, "System, you." However, before he finished speaking, the cold voice of the system sounded in his mind. Ding! The system automatically absorbs the energy of the current world and has successfully repaired the vulnerability. Ding! In order to make up for system errors, the host will be rewarded with an immortal-grade elixir, Tiandao Pill. Taking this elixir can build the strongest foundation and randomly awaken a physique, which the host can receive at any time. Quote. Hearing the voice in his head, Jun Moran's eyes widened. Immortal-grade elixir. Awakening the physique. If I eat it, won't I be like Long Ocean, defying the sky and the earth? Thinking of this, his angry face instantly turned to joy, and even his breathing became extremely rapid. System, you are so powerful. I wanted to praise you just now. You are like a bright light in the dark night, giving me extremely bright guidance. Receive the elixir, hee hee. As he said that, a mean smile appeared on Jun Moran's face. The next moment, a round pill glowing with light golden light fell into his palm out of thin air. Without thinking, he swallowed the elixir directly into his mouth. Then, he sat cross-legged with a serious look on his face, started practicing the training techniques in his memory, and started practicing. Time passed slowly, and the spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth continued to gather. John Moran can clearly feel that his cultivation speed is no different from before, let alone his awakening physique. Well, maybe my awakened physique is too strong. The road is long and long. I will search high and low. Don't be too hasty. After the words fell, he continued to fall into practice. Late at night, a roar filled with resentment resounded throughout the mountain peak. System, uncle. The next day, the weather was fine and cloudless. A unicorn jade chariot tied with red chips soared into the sky from the Tianjian sect. Behind it, thousands of monks stepped on flying swords and walked away with 10 miles of red makeup. The bright red silk dances with the wind, like a gorgeous picture. Such a huge momentum made all the monks tremble with fear. The Tianjian sect has such a big battle. Are you planning to start a war with any sect? Are you stupid? Who in the entire Dongzhou dares to go against the Tianjian sect? If I'm not mistaken, that person is the legendary holy son of the Tianjian sect. It is said that he once had an engagement with the daughter of the headmaster of the Qingyan sect. Could it be that he is going to marry her now? The holy son welcomes his bride. This is a rare sight. I have to follow him to see the excitement. What fun are you looking at? I said you don't want to die. This is because you are ignorant. If it were the other sect's saint, I really wouldn't dare to join in the fun, but this Tianjian sect saint is famous for being elegant and easygoing, and never takes action against others easily, let alone such a happy event. Quote. As soon as the words fell, the man drew his flying sword and hurriedly followed the wedding party. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other and followed suit. As time went by, the entire welcoming team continued to grow, and thousands of monks gathered together, rushing towards the Qingyan sect. Chu Xinghai didn't care at all about this. There was a slight smile on his lips, and he couldn't wait to see his white moonlight. Everyone in the team also looked happy. Such a grand scene was enough for them to brag at the wine table in the future. However, there is one exception. John Moran stood on an elder's flying sword, his face looking very ugly. Swallowing the immortal pill last night was a lonely experience, and until now, he didn't feel anything unusual. He once doubted whether he was hallucinating. Now he is faced with the fate of his own tragic death in the book, and he doesn't know if he can save his life. Thinking of this, his face became increasingly ugly. At this time, the people of the Qingyan sect, who had received the news long ago, came to the foot of the mountain under the leadership of the sect leader Tan Changfeng, waiting for the other party's arrival. A girl wearing a red wedding dress, with picturesque features and a graceful figure, had a look of hesitation on her face. She looked at her father from time to time, wanting to say something, but she never spoke. Behind her, a young man with a slender figure and a delicate face had a haze in his eyes. Chu Xinghai, you deserve to die. Cursing secretly in his mind, he clenched his fists loudly. His name is Yi Fan, and he is a transmigrator. Unfortunately, he has no cultivation qualifications. Fortunately, I awakened the system 6 years ago and can see through other people's luck and opportunities. He took advantage of the exercises given by the system and embarked on the path of spiritual practice. He also relied on his own calculations to get acquainted with Tan Qingzu, a girl of good fortune, and successfully won first blood. So far, his life has been smooth sailing, and his cultivation has been advancing by leaps and bounds. Now that he is only 18 years old, he has broken through to the middle stage of foundation building. He believes that he is the darling of heaven. In the future, he will slay the geniuses, destroy evil spirits, break through the sky, sweep across the stars, and eventually become a supreme giant. But it just so happened that that bullshit holy son wanted to rob his woman. The other party is seeking death. At this moment, the Qilin Jade chariot landed at the foot of Qingyan Mountain. Heavenly Sword Sect Chu Xinghai is here to welcome the bride. Chu Xinghai was dressed in red, standing with his hands behind his back, quietly looking at a beautiful figure in the distance. His posture was tall and straight, his demeanor was graceful, and his movements showed elegance, which attracted the admiration of countless female cultivators who were watching. Upon seeing this, Tan Changfeng showed a satisfied smile on his face. Qingzu, don't keep Xinghai waiting. Hearing his father's words, Tan Qingzu frowned and his expression kept changing. Finally, she seemed to have made some kind of determination and looked directly at Chu Xinghe in the distance. He gritted his teeth and said, I refuse. As soon as these words came out, there was silence in the venue. What nonsense are you talking about? Tan Chengfeng's expression suddenly changed drastically, and he looked at his daughter angrily. Who is Chu Xinghe? He is the well-deserved number one among the younger generation in the Dongzhou cultivation world. Now that Tan Qingzu regrets his marriage in front of so many people, he is not only slapping the other party in face, but also offending the entire Tianjian sect. This rebellious girl wants to destroy the 1,000-year-old foundation of my Qingyan sect. Thinking of this, he hurriedly explained, My dear nephew, please don't misunderstand. However, before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Tan Qingzu. Brother Xinghe, I have always regarded you as my elder brother, and I am very grateful for your care over the years. However, I have already made up my mind, and you will definitely bless me, right? As she spoke, crystal tears filled her eyes, and she looked at Chu Xinghe with pleading eyes. Seeing this, Yi Fan's clenched fists behind him slowly unclenched, and the corners of his mouth curled up unconsciously. Sure enough, the skills I learned online to pick up girls in my previous life were not in vain. It was not in vain that he had spent a huge sum of 5 yuan to become a member for 1 month. At this time, Chu Xinghe's smile froze on his face, and his mind went blank. He never expected that the girl who had followed him and said she would not marry him would actually choose to betray him. Holy Son! Jun Moran came to Chu Xinghe's side and whispered a reminder. Hearing this, Chu Xinghe came back to his senses and looked at the beautiful figure in disbelief. Do you only regard me as your brother? He murmured softly, with a bit of bitterness in his tone. Seeing his devastated look, Tan Qingzu couldn't bear it. But thinking of brother Yi Fan, she still made up her mind, lowered her head and said, I'm sorry. Seeing that his holy son was humiliated, Wang Er, the little follower, felt that his opportunity to show off had come. He stepped out of the crowd, assuming the posture of a loyal dog. He shouted loudly, Tan Qingzu, you white-eyed wolf. In terms of status, appearance and qualifications, how can my holy son not be worthy of you? The female cultivators all over the world are infatuated with my holy son, just like the Crucian carp crossing the river, in an endless stream. However, the holy son has never wavered even a little bit. Having said this, Wang Er puffed out his chest and looked around. He continued, over the years, the cultivation resources given to you by the holy son are enough to support the cultivation of all the disciples of an ordinary sect. Otherwise, with the qualifications of my holy son, he would have already broken through to the nascent soul stage, and this is how you treat him. As soon as this statement came out, there was an uproar in the venue. Cultivation is divided into 8 realms: Qi refining, foundation establishment, gold core, nascent soul, soul formation, great accomplishment, and transcending tribulation. Whoever can reach the nascent soul stage is not an old monster who has practiced for hundreds of years. What? The 20-year-old gold core in the middle stage is already appalling. If it is the nascent soul stage, what kind of heaven-defying existence is it? I have long heard of Shengji Chu's deep love, but I didn't expect that he would be so infatuated. It's a pity that all the infatuation ended up being wrongly paid. If someone is willing to do this for me, even if I die, my life will not be in vain. Listening to the comments from the people around him, Tan Qingzu stiffened. If this matter is not explained clearly, his reputation will definitely be ruined in the future. Thinking of this, she hurriedly said, You are talking nonsense. I have never asked brother Xinghe for anything. As for the cultivation resources, he took the initiative to give them to me. If I didn't accept them, he would definitely be sad. I reluctantly accepted it because of brother Xinghe. How could you confuse right and wrong? Hearing her outrageous remarks, Wang Er's face turned red with anger. You. Okay, let's leave this matter aside for now. You and the Holy Son have been engaged since childhood, and now you have betrayed the Holy Son. Do you admit it or not? Hearing this, Tan Qingzu frowned and didn't know how to explain it. Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind, and the words of Brother Fan appeared in her mind. Her eyes lit up and she said confidently, the words of the matchmaker ordered by parents should indeed be followed. However, we monks are fighting against the sky and the earth. We should follow our true intentions, and how can we be restrained by others? What's more, my brother Xinghei and I are not officially married, so even if we have feelings for each other, how can it be considered a betrayal? As soon as this statement came out, everyone was stunned. Tan Chengfeng looked at his daughter in front of him with a livid face, trembling all over. Jun Moran couldn't help but exclaimed in his heart, I'm Sao. I didn't expect that even if I transmigrated to the world of cultivation, I would hear such words that would cause intestinal obstruction. This is truly a little fairy worthy of the name. She won't shout for a while, sister, can I shake one for you? Suddenly, Jun Moran seemed to remember something, and his body shook violently. Wait, why do these words sound so familiar? Isn't this the conversation between myself and the heroine in the book? Now Wang Er has seized the opportunity. Thinking of this, Jun Moran glanced at the Qingyan sect disciples. I saw a young man with a slender figure and a delicate face, staring at Wang Er with a gloomy expression. That look in his eyes made him want to tear the other person into pieces. Seeing this, Jun Moran became vigilant. In line with the principle of death as fellow Taoist, he retreated behind Chu Xinghei without leaving a trace. The next moment, Wang Er's furious voice came from the venue. You have no shame. As the daughter of the leader of the Qingyan sect, Tan Qingzu had never heard such dirty words before. She turned pale with anger and her chest heaved with waves. You are looking for death. At this moment, a figure flew out from the crowd and slapped Wang Er's head with a sudden palm. Jun Moran was always paying attention to Yi Fan's movements. When he saw the other party taking action, he shouted loudly. Wang Er, retreat quickly. Wang Er's face changed drastically after receiving the reminder, and he instinctively dodged sideways, but he was still half a minute too late. Bang! With a muffled sound, his entire left arm exploded, splashing with bright red blood mist. All this happened so fast that no one could recover. No one thought that the disciples of the Qingyan sect dared to attack the people of the Tianjian sect. Are they seeking death? Yi Fan didn't notice the strangeness in everyone's eyes at all. He stood proudly with a cold curve at the corner of his mouth. Women who dare to humiliate me, no one can save you today, I said so. After the words fell, the spiritual power of his right fist surged, preparing to completely eliminate Wang Er. It's you. At this moment, a cold voice was like a muffled thunder, exploding in Yi Fan's ears, and the surrounding temperature seemed to drop a few points. His body stiffened and he looked up. He saw Chu Xinghei staring at him coldly, with a strong murderous intent in his dark and deep eyes. The next moment, a gust of wind rose out of thin air in the venue. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The long swords in the hands of all the swordsmen in the field vibrated in unison, as if they were summoned by something. They were out of control and suspended in midair. Chu Xinghei's whole body was filled with sword energy, and his bright red robes fluttered with the wind, making a hunting sound. Die. The fingers of his right hand were pressed together, and the void pointed forward. In an instant, countless flying swords turned into a stream of light, overwhelmingly attacking Yi Fan. Seeing such a huge change in the field, all the monks were shocked and dumbfounded. Ordinary monks in the foundation establishment stage can only control one flying sword. Even in the gold core stage, being able to control 10 flying swords is the limit. However, Chu Xinghei wielded many weapons with masters like his arms. He was worthy of being born with a sword, but it was so terrifying. Don't want. At this moment, Tan Qingzu exclaimed, and his figure disappeared instantly. The next moment, her graceful figure appeared in front of Mark. She quickly pinched the magic formula with both hands, and a majestic spiritual power burst out from her palms, forming a weak but extremely strong protective shield. However, facing the overwhelming flying swords, she could only close her eyes in despair. Seeing this, Chu Xinghei was shocked. Break! He shouted loudly and stopped what he was doing. In an instant, the flying swords all over the sky lost control and fell to the ground one after another. Tan Qingzu, who was hit by the sword energy, spat out a mouthful of blood, and his delicate body fell unconsciously behind him. Bamboo sister! Yi Fan exclaimed and hurriedly took the other person into his arms. Sister Zhu, why are you so stupid? If something happens to you, how can I have the dignity to survive in the world? Facing Yi Fan's concerned gaze, Tan Qingzu squeezed out a smile. Brother Fan, I'm fine. If I can die with you, Zuer will have no regrets in this life. Bamboo sister. Brother Fan. The two held hands tightly and stared at each other affectionately. Even the air around them seemed to have a sweet taste. Seeing the scene in front of him, Chu Xinghe spat out a mouthful of blood. Holy Sun. Jun Moran hurriedly held the other person's arm and asked worriedly, "Are you okay?" Wang who was seriously injured, and Li Dali also hurriedly came over, their faces full of concern. Chu Xinghe waved his hand and looked at Tan Qingzu's figure quietly, his eyes filled with sadness and resentment. At this time, an elder from Tianjian sect walked out of the crowd. He stared at Tan Chengfeng with a gloomy face and said viciously, "You fool, you dare to humiliate my holy son like this. Your Qingyan sect is challenging the bottom line of our Tianjian sect." As soon as he finished speaking, a long sword glowing red appeared out of thin air in his hand, and his whole body was filled with aura and murderous intent. As a sword cultivator, he already had a hot temper. Now that they saw their holy son being insulted, a group of disciples from the Tianjian sect glared angrily at the Qingyan sect. Kill! 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 Suddenly, the shouts of killing rose into the sky, deafening. Seeing that the situation was not good, all the independent cultivators stepped back one after another, fearing that they would be in trouble if they were too late. Seeing this, Tan Chengfeng's pupils shrank suddenly, and he secretly said something bad. Although he is at the soul formation stage, he is a level higher than the elder in front of him. However, if you give him 100 men who don't dare to fight against the Tianjian sect, isn't that asking for death? Thinking of this, he squeezed out a smile. Elder Li, calm down and don't do anything to hurt the harmony between our two sects. This matter is indeed my daughter's fault. Don't worry, I will definitely visit you personally and give an explanation to Sect Master Chu. Quote. Hearing this, Elder Li's expression did not change at all, and his aura did not diminish by half. The atmosphere in the stadium solidified for a moment, and the war was about to break out. At this moment, Tan Qingzu stood up straight with Yi Fan's help. She said weakly, "Brother Xinghe, this matter has nothing to do with the sect or my father. It is my decision alone. If you feel uncomfortable, just kill me. Please don't vent your anger on others, let alone hurt Brother Yi Fan." Hearing this, Chu Xinghe's face suddenly turned pale, and he looked at Tan Qingzu in disbelief. "You would rather die to protect him." As he spoke, his body shook slightly. The blood at the corner of his mouth was particularly conspicuous under the sunlight, giving his handsome face a hint of morbid beauty, but also a bit of desolation. "Yes, sorry." Tan Qingzu lowered his head, and 2 lines of tears slowly slid down his cheeks. Seeing his sweetheart being wronged, Yi Fan stood in front of her instantly. "Chu Xinghe, what's the point of forcing a woman? Aren't you just relying on your status? What's so great about it? If we have the same status, I, Yi Fan, will not be weaker than you." Hearing this, Tan Chengfeng's face turned green, and things had turned for the better. Who would have thought that this newly recruited disciple would be so ignorant? When Li Dali saw this pretty boy daring to provoke the Holy Son, he said angrily, "No matter who you are not worthy of being compared with my Holy Son." Hearing this, Yi Fan was not angry either. He glanced at Li Dali and others with disdain, and gave a disdainful crooked smile. How can a man who is born in heaven and earth live in depression for a long time under human beings? As a man, I should be at the top of my game, and I can see the courage of all the young men. Although I, Yi Fan, am a small person, I always firmly believe that a big rock can rise up to 90,000 miles in one day. And you guys, acting like dogs and pretending to be superior, have really brought shame to your parents, and Yi is deeply despised." After the words fell, he stood proudly with his hands behind his back. That look in his eyes, that expression, as if he was the master of heaven and earth. Yi Fan thought that when he said these words, he would cause a sensation and receive admiring looks from everyone. However, after waiting for a long time, there was silence in the venue. Everyone looked at him with a look of stupidity and sympathy. As everyone knows, this is a world of cultivation where strength is respected. If a proud man like Chu Xinghe showed off his literary talent here, it would be a bonus. And people like him who can't distinguish reality will only make people laugh. When Tan Qingzu heard the other party's domineering remarks again, He felt that his brother Fan was really the best among men, and he was indeed right. For a moment, she looked at Yi Fan with eyes full of obsession. Yi Fan, who was a little embarrassed, happened to see such a scene from the corner of his eye, and suddenly felt confident. With this love brain beside him, he didn't worry about his own safety at all. Sister Zhu still understands me. You illiterate people from another world don't understand the meaning and value of my two poems at all. Thinking of this, he suppressed the fear in his heart and looked at Chu Xinghe with a calm expression. Although I, Yi Fan, have ordinary qualifications and have only barely entered the middle stage of foundation building after practicing for 6 years, for the sake of Sister Bamboo and for the sake of my fellow disciples of Qingyan sect, today, I formally challenge you. If I lose, I will leave it to you. If I win by chance, you must apologize to Zume and promise not to retaliate against the Qingyan sect. Chu Xinghe, do you dare to fight me in the same realm? As soon as this statement came out, there was an uproar in the venue. What? After 6 years of practice, we have entered the early stage of foundation building. Did I hear you correctly? If that's true, is his talent even more evil than that of Saint Chu? Regardless of whether it's true or not, he dares to challenge the Holy Sun. He is seeking death. At this moment, everyone in the Qingyan sect looked at Yi Fan, and their eyes changed from resentment to appreciation and admiration. They never expected that the other party would be willing to bet with his own life, just hoping not to implicate the sect. When Tan Qingzu heard what her sweetheart said, she was even more excited and her pretty face turned red. Sure enough, the man I like is a hero. Everyone's reactions were caught in Yi Fan's eyes, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously curled up. Today, B is half pretending. As long as he defeats the injured Chu Xinghe next, he can become the peerless talent that everyone is eyeing. At this time, Jun Moran, who had been hiding behind Chu Xinghe, came back to his senses, his face full of surprise. There is no other reason. Just now the system reminded him that he had awakened a special physique, the Shira battle body. This kind of physique is born for fighting. The more you fight, the stronger you will become. The more serious the injuries you receive in each battle, the faster your cultivation will improve. The most amazing thing is that even if the physical body is damaged, it can repair itself by swallowing spiritual energy. After the great accomplishment of the divine body, it can even be reborn with blood and create an immortal body. At this moment, Jun Moran's heart was full of pride. What a bullshit protagonist, I am so powerful now. What's more, as a qualified follower, how can I let the boss take action himself? Thinking of this, he changed his obscurity and took 2 steps forward. He was the first to scold. Bah, a guy who hides behind women and eats soft food is worthy of challenging my holy son. Hearing this, Yi Fan's face was as gloomy as water. How dare a dog say that I eat soft food? How dare you expose my shortcomings in front of everyone? At this moment, Yi Fan was filled with anger. He looked at the other party coldly, the murderous intent in his eyes flying out like a sharp blade. However, when he saw Jun Moran's face clearly, his whole body froze on the spot. When they first met at Fengelingdu, when they saw Yang Guo's life, this sentence burst out of his mind unconsciously. At this moment, Yi Fan had some doubts about what kind of world he had come to. It's okay to have a monster saint son who looks the same as brother Haonan, but now even a little follower of the other party actually looks exactly the same as Bai Jiyu. Obviously I am the protagonist of destiny, why can't I be counted as one with such a handsome appearance? Brother Fan, brother Fan. At this moment, Tan Qingzu's call came to his ears. After Yi Fan came back to his senses, his face became increasingly ugly. Not sure whether it was because of jealousy or because he was angered by the other party's words, he directly spit out the quintessence of the Chinese nation. I'm a fool. How dare a dog at the 4th level of Qi refining dare to bark? I will break your limbs and sell you to a brothel in the secular world, so that you. Yi Fan, who had broken his guard, was full of obscenities, without the high-spirited look he had just now. His completely different appearance made everyone in the venue stunned. In response, Jun Moran just smiled disdainfully. Be angry, the angrier you are, the more stable I will be. Hey, I just want to ask if you are angry. Thinking of this, the corner of Jun Moran's mouth curved. He imitated Yi Fan's appearance just now, standing proudly with his hands behind his back. My lord, Mo Ran, is extremely talented. After practicing for more than 10 years, with the huge resources given by the Holy Sun, I can barely break through to the 4th level of chi refining. However, a gentleman is magnanimous and a villain has a long-lasting relationship. The Holy Sun has never disliked my poor talent. Instead, he regards me and his subordinates as brothers. How many people in the world can have such a big heart, such courage, and such character? Speaking of this, Jun Moran stared at Yi Fan coldly. He continued, "You are a weakling who only knows how to eat soft food. You don't feel ashamed to win someone's love. Instead, you repeatedly provoke my Holy Sun. The Holy Sun is kind and does not want to argue with you, but I, Jun Mo Ran, cannot tolerate you being so presumptuous. A scholar will die for a confidant. Today, I challenge you with my 4th level of chi refining. At the same level, do you dare to fight?" As soon as this statement came out, everyone in the venue was stunned. First, Yi Fan used his cultivation in the foundation establishment stage to challenge the Holy Sun in the gold core stage. Now, an ordinary little follower actually challenged Yi Fan, who was in the middle stage of foundation building, with his cultivation level in the chi refining stage. Are all young people today so arrogant? At this moment, even Chu Xinghei's gloomy expression softened a lot, and his heart was even touched. Am I really as good as he said? Although Jun Moran is usually good at flattering others, now he is really good at it when something happens. Thinking of this, Chu Xinghei ordered the elders on the side. Elder Li, if Jun Moran is in danger later, save him at all costs. Don't worry, Holy Sun. Elder Li responded, his eyes staring forward as sharply as an eagle. You are looking for death, I will help you. Yi Fan roared and rushed forward like a mad beast. Seeing this, Jun Moran's eyelids twitched, and he was still a little frightened. Although the opponent controlled his cultivation to the 4th level of chi refining, due to his original qualifications, he focused on cultivation and did not practice any attack methods. If it were a head-on confrontation, I wouldn't just receive a box lunch like in the original book, would I? At this moment, a fierce wind struck. Without any time to think about it, Jun Moran hurriedly hid aside. Bang! With a loud noise, Jun Moran's body flew out instantly like a cannonball. Finally, it hit the ground hard. PFF'd. He clutched his chest and spit out a mouthful of blood, his face extremely pale. The next moment, a trace of horror flashed in his eyes. Because, Jun Moran noticed that the injuries in his body were not as serious as imagined. Instead, there is a sense of coolness, which is quickly repairing his injuries. Seeing this, Yi Fan thought the other party was afraid. The corners of his mouth curved up, and he chuckled instantly. Haha, is this your strength? You are simply vulnerable. After he finished speaking, he shook his right hand in disgust, as if he had just touched something dirty. At this moment, Jun Moran slowly stood up. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, imitating the other party's appearance, and raised the corners of his mouth in a precise arc. Haha, is this your strength? It's not as strong as the girls in the brothel. It's so disappointing. After the words fell, he dusted his chest in disgust. Every move of the other party made Yi Fan feel extremely insulted. He glared angrily, his momentum surged, and he rushed forward violently, bringing up billows of dust and smoke under his feet. Fire palm. When he was approaching Jun Moran, Yi Fan shouted loudly, condensed a dazzling red light in his right palm, and slapped the opponent's chest. For a moment, the sound of thunder exploded in the air, sweeping forward with scorching heat. Feeling the opponent's terrifying offensive, Jun Moran felt an inexplicable sense of excitement in his heart. He didn't even dodge, and used his body to actively meet the opponent's attack. At the same time, he shouted loudly, fire palm. Seeing the other party's bluffing appearance, Mark had a sneer on his face. Kacha. Crack. The sound of broken bones and crisp slaps clearly reached everyone's ears. As expected, Jun Moran's body drew a perfect arc in the air, with a large blood stain, and hit the ground hard. But Yi Fan was like a sculpture, standing there blankly. He unconsciously stretched out his left hand and touched his burning cheek, his eyes full of confusion. Everyone looked at the clear slap marks on Yi Fan's face and looked a little strange. All the monks present could see that the little follower had no offensive means at all, but he was willing to take a blow from the opponent and give him a slap. This is really a man. Young pretty boy, I'm going to rip off your skin and cut you into pieces. After regaining consciousness, Yi Fan suddenly raised his head, staring at scarlet eyes, and walked towards Jun Moran step by step. Seeing this, Li Dali and Wang Er's hearts skipped a beat. The two of them looked nervously at the motionless figure in the field, their faces full of worry. Elder Li's eyes flashed, and he was ready to take action at any time. At this moment, Jun Moran slowly got up from the ground. A dark palm print appeared on his chest, revealing the burnt flesh and blood inside, which looked shocking. Ahem. He whispered twice, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, adding a fragile beauty to his already pale face. However, Jun Moran's body stood upright, and he stared at Yi Fan coldly. It's okay to pretend, but please stay within the range I gave you. Why do you want to be broken into pieces? Why? Just with your strength, which is not even as good as a fool. For a weakling like you to think of challenging my holy son is simply a fool's errand. After the words fell, Jun Moran took advantage of Yi Fan's daze and took the initiative to rush forward. Fire palm. He shouted loudly and raised his right hand high. Seeing the other party's actions, Yi Fan only felt his cheeks burning, followed by endless anger. However, fearing that the other party would repeat his same tricks, he instinctively protected his cheek. Unexpectedly, Jun Moran fainted, suddenly changed his palms into claws, and used a monkey trick to steal peaches. Caught off guard, Yi Fan could only evade in a hurry. Jun Moran took advantage of the situation to pursue him and used the mad dog fist he had seen in his previous life, specializing in the opponent's lower three lanes. In the eyes of everyone, he was just like a gangster fighting, without any rules. But his desperate and vicious approach caught Yi Fan off guard. This scene made Chu Xinghe, who was immersed in sadness, widen his eyes. Is it okay for cultivators to fight like this? But why does it feel a little embarrassing? At this time, Yi Fan was upset and tortured by the opponent's attack. He felt like a monkey in a circus being watched and laughed at by everyone. A wave of anger rose from his heart, and he decided to fight quickly and completely eliminate the pretty boy in front of him. The next moment, Yi Fan did not dodge or evade, suddenly raised his right fist and hit the opponent's head hard. Seeing the other party's actions, Jun Moran's eyes flashed with excitement. Under the influence of Shira's battle body, he didn't have a trace of fear, and the fighting spirit in his heart was rising steadily. Die! He shouted loudly, without any intention of evading, and used the monkey stealing peach trick again. This extremely eye-catching move was actually used by Jun Moran with an indomitable momentum. Seeing this, Yi Fan's heart shrank suddenly. The other party is just a shameless dog, but he is the destined protagonist. It's too shameful to gamble your own romantic happiness with the life of such a person. Thinking like this, the strength in his hand could not help but become a little weaker. However, it was too late to stop the attack. Jun Moran had already bumped into his own fist. The next moment. Bang! Kacha! Yi Fan seemed to hear his own heartbroken voice. Ah! He screamed, his face was extremely distorted, he covered his lower abdomen, and instantly fell to the ground. Jun Moran felt his head buzzing, his body shook twice, and he knelt on the ground with a plop. Although he was bleeding from all his orifices, he held his body upright, with a fierce fighting spirit flashing deep in his eyes. For a moment, there was silence in the venue. Everyone stared at the two people intently, for fear of missing any wonderful moment. At this moment, Yi Fan suddenly raised his head, his face turned red and the veins on his forehead bulged. Zombie, you succeeded in irritating me. After the words fell, he stood up tremblingly. A long knife with a cold light appeared out of thin air in his hand, and the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. When they saw the long knife, someone in the venue instantly exclaimed. What? It's actually the best magic weapon. Hearing this, some independent cultivators looked at Yi Fan with greedy eyes. You must know that weapons in the world of cultivation are divided into law weapon, spiritual weapon, magic weapon, spiritual treasure, immortal weapon, and divine weapon. Each grade is further subdivided into low grade, middle grade, high grade and best grade. As the strongest sect in Eastern Continent, Tianjian sect, it only has one incomplete low-grade immortal weapon. As for the heads of some ordinary sects, the weapons in their hands are only magic weapon level. Nowadays, a top-quality magic weapon appears in front of everyone, how can we not make people jealous? At this moment, Yi Fan had no intention of paying attention to everyone's thoughts. Today was his chance to become famous all over the world, but in the end it was ruined by a pretty boy, and he lost such a big face. He must find this place and then torture the other party to death bit by bit. Thinking of this, he said with a gloomy face, "Aunt, don't say I won't give you a chance to live. As long as you kowtow to me and admit your mistake, I will spare your life." However, Jun Moran burst into laughter instantly as if he heard some joke. Ha 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 ha, ah ha 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 ha. Spare my life. Bah. In our Tianjian sect, we only have disciples who die standing up, not cowards who live on their knees. Are you worthy of asking me to kneel down for you? Are you worthy of me? Before Jun Moran finished speaking, he felt as if the air around him had solidified, and it was bitingly cold. Die. In an instant, a flash of knife light flashed. PFF'd. Blood splattered everywhere, and the long knife sank into Jun Moran's shoulder in an instant, and was deeply embedded in the shoulder blade. Seeing this, Yi Fan had a look of disbelief on his face. The long knife in his hand is a top-quality magic weapon. Even if he is a monk in the foundation building stage, he is confident that he can cut the opponent in half with one knife. However, the pretty boy in front of him who was at the 4th level of chi refining actually managed to hold on. At this time, Jun Moran only felt a heartbreaking pain coming from his shoulder, especially the endless chill, as if his soul was about to be torn apart. When a person dies, a bird looks up to the sky, and he will not die for tens of millions of years. A strong murderous intention rises from his heart. I'm a fool. He cursed angrily and stood up suddenly. The next moment, bloodthirsty light flashed in his eyes, and he rushed towards the opponent crazily. The sound of the long knife cutting across the bones was clearly heard in everyone's ears. Scarlet blood spattered on Jun Moran's pale face, but he seemed to feel no pain. Taking advantage of Yi Fan's extreme shock, he suddenly stretched out his left hand and grabbed the opponent's knife-holding wrist. Immediately, he raised his right hand and slapped the opponent's cheek without hesitation. Crack! With a crisp sound, Yi Fan's nose was beaten out. It is enough to see the power contained in this slap. As the saying goes, I will kill you while you are sick. Jun Moran didn't stop at all, and the slaps from his right hand kept falling on the opponent's cheek like a sudden storm. He beat and cursed at the same time. I'll show you all the mountains and small mountains. I'll make you skyrocket to 90,000 miles. I asked you to seduce someone else's fiancé. I'll cut you into pieces. After regaining consciousness, Yi Fan wanted to withdraw his right hand, but found that the opponent's palm was like an iron pliers, unable to shake it at all. Out of anger, he simply gave up trying to break free, directly raised his left fist and hit the opponent's head directly. However, Jun Moran seemed to have not seen the other party's movements. Continued to raise his palm and slap Yi Fan on the cheek. Seeing this, Tan Qingzu shouted anxiously, "Stop, don't fight again." It's a pity that the two people who fell into madness seemed to have a blood feud. They stared with scarlet eyes. If you punch me, I'll slap you. Bang bang bang. Pa bang bang. For a time, dull knocking sounds and crisp slaps echoed around. Hiss. Seeing such a scene, all the monks took a breath of air. At this moment, most people's eyes were focused on Jun Moran. No one thought that a little follower could be so bloody. Everyone did not mock him because of his poor talent and low cultivation level. The eyes that looked at him were full of admiration and appreciation. You know, in the cunning world of cultivation, there is never a shortage of talented young people. Talent is important, but loyalty is even rarer. This Jun Moran never leaves his son, he is grateful, and in order to protect the son's dignity, he even puts his own life at risk. How could such a young man with such an innocent heart not make people's eyes light up? Especially the disciples of the Tianjian sect, who originally thought that the other party had poor talent, but were vigorously cultivated by the Holy Son and the sect, inevitably felt dissatisfied. Now, these people have been completely impressed by Jun Moran, and they want to make friends. Time passed slowly, and the two people on the field died together continued. However, the speed of the two men's attacks has slowed down a lot. At this moment, Jun Moran's handsome face was covered with blood. Scarlet blood slowly overflowed from his 7 orifices. However, the fierce light in his eyes became more and more powerful, like an evil ghost crawling out of hell, making people shudder. What surprised everyone the most was that even in this appearance, he was still cursing weakly in a hoarse voice. Yi Fan on the opposite side was even more miserable. The left side of his face had been beaten to pieces. His left eye was swollen like a walnut, his mouth was crooked, and he couldn't even remember how many teeth flew out. Scarlet blood mixed with tears, snot, and saliva made his face look miserable. Crack. Feeling the force of the slap on his face, Yi Fan, who was stunned, instantly sobered up a little. He never expected that the opponent could be so brave after fighting to this extent. If we continue, I'm afraid I will have to explain it here today. No, I can't die yet, I haven't become the master of this world yet. There are thousands of girls waiting for me, Yi Fan, to favor me. Thinking of this, a trace of cruelty flashed in his eyes. Die. With a roar, Yi Fan's momentum surged, and the pressure of the middle stage of foundation building poured out of his body, sweeping around like a tide. The next moment, he used all his strength to punch Jun Moran in the head. As if he saw the other party's fate, the corners of his mouth that were already crooked almost reached the base of his ears. You are looking for death. Upon seeing this, Chu Xinghei's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Before the elder beside him could make a move, he put his fingers together and pointed the void in the direction of Yi Fan, and an invisible sword energy burst out instantly. PFF'd. Yi Fan's fist was instantly hit by the sword energy and stayed half an inch above Jun Moran's head. Ah! With a scream, his entire left hand exploded instantly, and blood splattered everywhere. Jun Moran, whose head was covered with blood, did not miss this opportunity. He used all his strength and slapped him out again. Pa! A crisp slap echoed throughout the venue. Yi Fan was beaten so hard that he spun around a few times and fell heavily to the ground. Brother Fan! Tan Qingzu exclaimed and rushed forward in a hurry. She took out a pill from the porcelain bottle and stuffed it into Yi Fan's mouth. A pair of peach blossom eyes flashed with tears, and she asked with worry, Brother Fan, how are you? As she spoke, she rubbed her right hand twice on the other person's arm without leaving any trace. When she was giving medicine just now, she accidentally got contaminated by the viscous liquid. As a little fairy, how could she bear it? Even if the other person is his sweetheart, Tan Qingzu still feels inexplicably disgusting. As everyone knows, her actions were caught by Mark. He forced out a smile and said weakly, Sister Zhu, don't worry, I won't die yet. I didn't control my cultivation just now. Even if I was attacked by someone, it was reasonable. Sister Zhu must not blame Shengji Chu for this. Quote. Hearing this, Tan Qingzu turned around instantly and stared at Chu Xinghei coldly. She asked loudly, Yi Fan is just a practitioner in the foundation building stage. In full view of everyone, you actually do what a villain does and conduct a sneak attack. Chu Xinghei, I was blind and misjudged the wrong person, you disappoint me so much. After hearing her words, Chu Xinghei's originally somewhat soothing expression suddenly turned gloomy. Before he could speak, Li Dali beside him couldn't stand it. He said first, it's a fair contest between the two sides. That shameless guy didn't follow the rules first, and you actually said that my holy son is a villain. Who is the blind one? However, Tan Qingzu laughed lightly as if he heard some joke. Haha, fair. I am so talented that I still have to come out and embarrass myself. Is this what you call fair? Even if Brother Fan used his cultivation in the foundation establishment stage, it was based on his own cultivation. What's wrong with that? You use your power to suppress others, and you have to let Brother Fan suppress his cultivation and fight with that dog. Is this what you call fairness? Her confident words made the monks in the room feel as helpless as a myocardial infarction. In broad daylight, in the clear sky, can this black thing be said to be white? No one thought that the famous Qingzu fairy in other places would be such a thing with underdeveloped brains. For a moment, everyone looked at Tan Qingzu with strange eyes. At this moment, Tan Changfeng's face was livid with anger. He couldn't help but shouted angrily, Shut up, you evildoer. Isn't that embarrassing enough? When Tan Qingzu met his father's cold gaze, his body instinctively trembled. She just felt extremely wronged inside. What was wrong with her? It was obvious that these people were bullying others and bullying herself and brother Fan. Especially when I saw the weird looks in everyone's eyes, as if they were laughing at me. A surge of anger rose from her heart. She looked around and locked her eyes on Jun Moran. A pair of beautiful eyes, like cold poisonous snakes, filled with strong hatred and anger. It's you, it's all you. If it weren't for you, brother Fan wouldn't be hurt. I'd kill you, this shameless fool. As soon as the words fell, an emerald green sword appeared in Tan Qingzu's hand and stabbed straight towards Jun Moran's chest. At this moment, Jun Moran has already reached the end of his strength. Looking at the long sword thrust towards him, his breath froze. I thought to myself, my life is at an end. At this moment, his brain was very clear. Although he didn't know how he came to this world, he wanted to know how he died. Moreover, even if he dies, he must die with dignity. He must not die on the bed of a rich woman like he did in his previous life. So, Jun Moran straightened his entire body and stood there calmly, with an aura of looking forward to death. PFF'd. The long sword pierced the chest, and bright red blood sputtered out. Ah! At this moment, Tan Qingzu screamed and instantly let go of the sword in his hand. She covered her bleeding right eye and kept rolling on the ground. All this happened so fast that no one had time to react. The next moment, a cold voice reached everyone's ears. If you have no vision, what's the use of keeping it? Xuan Sheng looked around and saw that Chu Xinghei's eyes were full of indifference. The fingers of his right hand were pressed together in the shape of sword fingers, still staying in midair. Seeing such a scene, everyone in the venue was shocked. No one thought that Chu Shengji would be so cruel. Tan Chengfeng looked at his injured daughter with a calm expression on his face, as if Tan Qingzu's experience had nothing to do with him. At this moment, even Jun Moran's eyes widened. What is going on? Is this still the crazy villain who is obsessed with Tan Qingzu, crazy for her, and bangs against the wall for her? Now that the little fairy has turned into a one-eyed dragon at the beginning, everything seems to be in chaos. However, I have to say, this guy can handle it. Seeing that the other party is not hopeless and treats me well, I will never let him go down the old path of darkness. Thinking of this, Jun Moran stood up straight again and prepared to make an impassioned speech. At this moment, two figures quickly approached. Brother Jun. Brother Jun, how are you? The eyes of Li Dali and Wang were full of worry. They were completely impressed by each other. The call of Brother Jun was sincere. Li Dali took a step forward and prepared to support Jun Moran. However, Jun Moran shook his head slightly. Now this is my highlight moment, it's too unworthy to be helped to the end by someone else. I saw him saying calmly, it's just a minor injury, not enough, cough cough cough. The next moment, he spit out a mouthful of blood. In order to protect his image, Jun Moran resisted the urge to continue vomiting blood. He gritted his teeth, with blood in his mouth, and slowly spit out 4 words, it's not worth mentioning. Upon seeing this, Li Dali and Wang Er's eyes widened, as if they were asking, are you sure this is a minor injury? Before the two of them came to their senses, Jun Moran was already shaking his body and walking towards the Tianjian sect's camp tremblingly. As he walked, he said weakly, a hero is not without tears. He does not shed tears in front of the enemy. There is no coward among the disciples of Tianjian sect. Although the voice was small, it reached everyone's ears clearly. Everyone stared at the figure intently, and saw that Jun Moran's pure white robe had been dyed into a strange red. Especially the long knife on his shoulder and the long sword in his chest were still flowing with blood. Every time he took a step, he would leave shocking bloody footprints on the ground, which were particularly dazzling under the sunlight. Jun Moran's performance today perfectly interpreted the image of a man with a strong will and strong will. The aura of a righteous monk who is indomitable and dares to challenge heaven and earth is perfectly presented. Good. I didn't know who it was in the crowd, so I couldn't help but shout loudly. A group of disciples of the Tianjian sect could not control their excitement and also joined in. Driven by their emotions, thousands of monks cheered in unison. For a moment, the sound was deafening and resounded through the sky. Jun Moran had never seen such a scene before. He felt so proud and excited in his heart. Today, B is just pretending, so let's worship him more intensely. Thinking like this, Jun Moran stopped. As if he remembered something, he slowly turned around and scanned everyone in the Qingyan sect one by one. It has to be said that at this moment, he was completely lost. I don't know what part of his brain was wrong, but Jun Moran suddenly said, "My holy son cannot be offended. The day he and I succeed in my cultivation will be the day your Qingyan sect will be destroyed." Hearing this, Tan Changfeng's face turned pale. He stared hard at the ant in front of him that could be destroyed with a wave of his hand, but he never dared to make any move. At this moment, Yi Fan, who had been lying on the ground, could no longer bear the humiliation in his heart. He stared with scarlet eyes and roared, 30 years to the east of Hedong, 30 years to the west of Hexi, don't bully. Before he could finish his words, Jun Moran stretched out his hand and interrupted. You are poor, are you justified? Didn't anyone tell you that in addition to talent and luck, there is also background in the journey of spiritual practice? Just because you are so weak the rice brat. Even if I, the worst person in the Tianjian sect, can't beat me, how dare I keep barking? By the way, I would also like to thank you, the adulterers and adulterers, for the weapons presented to you, ha 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 ha. Jun Moran laughed loudly, stretched out his right hand suddenly, grabbed the long knife on his shoulder, and pulled hard. Tear. In an instant, bright red blood spurted out and splashed on his long, dark hair, like a blooming flower. However, Jun Moran didn't even frown, but laughed and said, good knife, ha 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 ha. Seeing his crazy appearance, everyone took a breath. However, the movements in Jun Moran's hands did not stop. He decisively stretched out his other hand and pulled out the long sword stuck in his chest. PFF'd. Under the influence of the injury, he suddenly spurted out a mouthful of blood. However, now that he has pretended to this point, he naturally cannot let go. Jun Moran had blood in his mouth and laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha, what a good sword, so. Before he finished speaking, he felt his eyes go dark and a sense of powerlessness came from his legs. It's too big. The next moment. Bang! His body suddenly fell to the ground and fell into a coma completely. Brother Jun. Seeing this, Li Dali and Wang Er hurriedly ran forward to check each other's injuries. In the crowd, an old man looked at Jun Moran's figure with shining eyes, as if he had seen some rare treasure. Hee, this kid has a bit of an evil streak. He is more ruthless to his enemies than he is to himself, which coincides with the true meaning of my demonic cultivator lineage. With a low murmur, his figure instantly disappeared from where he was. At this time, Yi Fan, who was embarrassed, was considering whether to pretend to be faint to escape this embarrassing scene. Suddenly, he felt that the hairs all over his body stood up, and he had the illusion that he was being stared at by a wild beast. He looked up and found Chu Xinghe staring at him expressionlessly. The dangerous aura in his cold eyes made him feel like he had fallen into an ice cave. It's over. With a cry of surprise in his heart, he endured the feeling of weakness in his body and climbed up from the ground. Sister Zhu, don't be afraid, Sister Zhu, I'm here. Yi Fan rushed to Tan Qingzu's side in 2 steps, took him into his arms, moved his steps twice without leaving a trace, and turned the back of the person in his arms towards the direction of Tianjian sect. Listening to the voice coming from his ears, Tan Qingzu, whose body was trembling, huddled tightly in the other person's arms as if grasping a life-saving straw. Brother Tian, my eyes, my eyes. She covered her bleeding right eye and screamed in panic. Don't worry, Sister Zhu, no matter what happens, I will be by your side and never be separated, believe me. Don't talk about one eye, even if you are disfigured and old, I will marry you and take care of you for the rest of your life. Yi Fan comforted softly, but looked at Chu Xinghe's figure from the corner of his eye. At this moment, he is mentally tense. If there is any danger, he will throw the person in his arms out without hesitation to resist the enemy's attack. Tan Qingzu's panic gradually calmed down as he listened to his sweetheart's sincere words. The man she chose really loved her to the core. The scene where the two of them shared life and death, and whose love was as strong as gold, fell into Chu Xinghe's eyes, and was particularly dazzling. His eyes continued to flow between the two of them, and finally stopped on Tan Qingzu. This relationship should last forever. If you are merciless, I will break up. Tan Qingzu, from now on, you and I will be strangers. After the words fell, Chu Xinghe flicked his sleeves and robe and left in the air. Seeing this, the disciples of the Tianjian sect looked at each other, and then they all drew their flying swords and chased after them. Hey! Elder Li sighed softly, and with a wave of his sleeves, Jun Moran and the other two people were swept away and disappeared. If Jun Moran had not fainted, he would have said with emotion, "The world of cultivation is better, as long as he can fly, he will never walk." At this time, Tan Qingzu couldn't help but stiffen. Chu Xinghei's cold and biting voice still lingered in her ears. At this moment, she felt that something important seemed to be leaving her. However, it only took her a moment to stabilize her mood. She has found the love of her life, and Tan Qingzu will never regret her choice today. 2 days later, inside the Tianjian sect. Hey. Jun Moran's eyes were closed tightly. He didn't know what he was dreaming about. The corners of his mouth almost reached the base of his ears. Ha, it's not that easy to kill me. The next moment, he suddenly sat up from the bed. Looking confusedly at the long sword clenched in his left hand and the long knife clenched in his right hand, Jun Moran finally remembered that he seemed to have fainted at the most glorious moment. There's something wrong with this bee's pretense. You have to restrain yourself next time. After muttering, he seemed to remember something and hurriedly checked the injuries on his body. At this moment, a stream of pure spiritual energy flowed from Jun Moran's limbs. Without any time to think about it, he hurriedly sat cross-legged and started practicing the exercises. In an instant, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth continued to gather, pouring into his body like a tide. Jun Moran can clearly feel that the meridians that were originally blocked have become much smoother, and even the speed of cultivation has increased a bit. Under the guidance of the exercises, the restless spiritual energy in the body wandered around for a few times and continued to gather towards the dantian. At the same time, his aura continued to surge. The 5th level of Qi refining, the 6th level of Qi refining, the 7th level of Qi refining, until the 9th level of Qi refining, a surprising scene appeared. Jun Moran's cultivation level has not broken through the foundation building stage, but it is still improving rapidly. The 10th, 11th, and 12th levels of Qi refining. The skin on his body began to crack inch by inch, and blood continued to overflow, making it look particularly oozing. The next moment, the spiritual energy in his body became restless again. As the spiritual energy continued to circulate, the cracks on his skin were gradually repaired and then destroyed again. Over and over again, it's like undergoing an extremely cruel punishment. An hour later, Jun Moran suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 frightening rays of light shot out from his eyes. Ha, this is the legendary perfect foundation, the system will not deceive me. With a loud laugh, he felt the cultivation in the early stages of foundation building, and his heart was filled with infinite excitement. He has a strong self-confidence, and now when he faces Yi Fan, he can definitely blow his opponent's head off. Looking at the blood-stained clothes on his body, Jun Moran hurriedly walked out of the bed. After washing up, he put on a white robe and walked out the door carrying 2 weapons. Brother Jun, Li Dali and Wang who were sitting cross-legged in the distance, immediately stood up to greet them with excited expressions. Looking at the slightly tired expressions of the 2 people, Jun Moran couldn't understand why the 2 of them were worried about themselves, so they stayed here all the time. Especially Wang Er's empty left arm sleeve and pale face moved Jun Moran even more. For a moment, a warm current flashed through the heart of this exquisite egoist. Brother Jun, how are you injured? Brother Jun, what's your cultivation level? The 2 of them asked in unison, their faces full of surprise. It doesn't matter, the minor injuries have been healed long ago. As for the cultivation level, I accidentally broke through to the foundation building stage, which is not worth mentioning. Jun Moran shook the 2 long strands of hair in front of his forehead and spoke calmly. However, the corner of his mouth, which was even harder to suppress than AK, betrayed his true inner feelings. This. Li Dali and Wang Er's eyes widened, and their mouths opened wide enough to stuff eggs. Brother Jun, do you want to listen to what you are saying? After a while, Wang Er looked at Jun Moran with a resentful look on his face, like a resentful woman who had been abandoned by a scumbag. Jun Moran felt goosebumps all over his body when he saw him, and he hurriedly changed the subject. By the way, how is the Holy Sun? Hearing his inquiry, Li Dali sighed deeply. Hey, since the Holy Sun came back, He has been standing on the top of the peak for 2 days and 2 nights, as if he has lost his soul and is motionless. Hearing this, Jun Moran frowned, feeling a little worried in his heart. The other party is related to his future, and there cannot be any mistakes. Well, you two have worked hard. Go back and rest quickly. I'm going to see the Holy Sun. After the words fell, he walked towards the distance without looking back. Brother Jun. Master Jun. Along the way, I met many fellow disciples, and they all greeted Jun Moran enthusiastically. He even saw the hot and eager light in the eyes of several female disciples. At this moment, he felt as if he had finally stood up, and wanted to shout, 10 years, do you know how I lived these 10 years? However, in order to maintain his image, he could only hold back his inner smile and straighten his body. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he held the long sword tightly in his left hand and the long knife in his right hand, walking like a tiger, with the momentum of slashing back and forth from Penglai East Road to Nantianmen for 3 days and 3 nights. All the way to Shungji Peak, looking from a distance, a figure stood quietly on the top of the peak. The figure stood with hands behind her hands, her long black hair and fiery red wedding robe fluttering in the wind, but her deep eyes were like a pool of stagnant water at the moment, adding to the desolation. Jun Moran walked closer and looked into the distance like the Holy Sun, without saying a word. For a moment, the venue was silent. After a while, a hoarse voice sounded. Tell me, what is love? Jun Moran didn't even think about it, and blurted out, ask what love is in this world, it will teach you how to make love between life and death. After the words fell, the venue fell into silence again. Jun Moran wanted to slap himself in the mouth. What are you talking about? Isn't this adding fuel to the fire? He coughed lightly and said hurriedly, asking what love is in the world will turn people into useless people. I once read a story in a storybook. There was once a swordsman with extraordinary talent. He had been in the world for 30 years and defeated all the heroes in the world. He could not find a single opponent in his life. It's a pity that the hero was so sad that he was betrayed and all his meridians were destroyed, making him the laughing stock of the world. Quote. Having said this, Jun Moran paused and found that Chu Xinghe was still staring into the distance. He continued, after a whole decade of cold looks and ridicule, that senior did not give up on the path of martial Dao. Instead, he uncovered the illusion and created a peerless sword classic. With the help of this peerless sword manual, the senior reshaped his meridians and improved his cultivation by leaps and bounds, even better than before. He cut off his emotions and re-entered the world, killing all the unfaithful people in the world and almost destroying the entire world by himself. It can be said to be frightening, and people call it, the sword demon seeks defeat alone. Hearing this, Chu Xinghe's eyes flashed, as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't speak. Seeing this, the corner of Jun Moran's mouth curled up. He said to himself, I have to say, that senior is really a genius. The general outline of the sword code is, if there is no woman in your heart, draw your sword to the god of nature. The first sword formula is to forget your sweetheart, the second sword formula is to cut off the soul of infatuation, and the third sword formula is to kill the old lover in anger. Hearing this, Chu Xinghe's eyes lit up a little again. Jun Moran sighed deeply. Hey, it's just a story in a picture book, don't mention it, don't mention it. Chu Xinghe. Seeing the light in Chu Xinghe's eyes, Jun Moran hurriedly handed over the weapons in both hands. By the way, these are the trophies obtained from those two people, let the Holy Sun do whatever they want. Hearing this, Chu Xinghe cast his gaze on the emerald green sword, with a trace of cruelty flashing in his eyes. Seeing this, Jun Moran's heart skipped a beat. Only then did he remember that this long sword was a high-grade magic weapon that Chu Xinghe had given to that green tea Tan Qingzu. Nowadays, if the other party doesn't accept it, how can I get the system reward? Sure enough, the next moment, Chu Xinghe's cold voice came to his ears. Since it is your trophy, it belongs to you naturally. There is no need to ask me for instructions. Hearing the other party's rejection, Jun Moran didn't have time to think too much. He hurriedly said, Holy Sun, my subordinates are of low cultivation. It is inevitable that such a magic weapon will be coveted by others. Besides, having said this, he paused for a moment, as if he was hesitating whether to say it or not. The next moment, Jun Moran seemed to have made some kind of determination. He continued, besides, Senior Sword Demon Dugu once said that being infatuated is not a sin, but forgetfulness is free and easy. Love and love are all bubbles, just fireworks for a moment. A true swordsman must learn to let go, and letting go is not about escaping or staying away, but about having the courage to face the past self. Hearing this, Chu Xinghe was stunned for a moment. Then, he casually took the two magic weapons and couldn't help but murmured, "Do you dare to face it? This Senior Dugu is a wonderful person." At this moment, the long-lost system voice sounded in Jun Moran's mind again. Ding! The host will give the target character two magic weapons. Since the host is giving away items for the first time, a special reward will be triggered. Ding! Reward the host low-grade divine weapon. God-killing spirit remnant. Quote. Low-grade divine weapon. Jun Moran roared in his heart and automatically ignored the system prompt about defective products. At this moment, he seemed to see himself dressed in white, holding the divine weapon gun, fighting with the gods and Buddhas for 3 days and 3 nights, with corpses everywhere under his feet, but he was unscathed and looking down on all living beings. In excitement, his whole body was filled with spiritual energy and his robes were blowing loudly. Seeing this, Chu Xinghe raised his eyebrows and focused his gaze on Jun Moran. You actually broke through to Foundation building. No, was there anything unusual when you broke through? In this regard, Jun Moran did not hide it. He replied directly, the Holy Sun has a sharp eye. When I woke up, my subordinates seemed to have enlightened themselves. Not only did their cultivation progress by leaps and bounds, but they also practiced directly when they broke through the 9th level of chi refining. It was only on the 12th floor that we broke through to the foundation. Hearing this, a light flashed in Chu Xinghe's eyes. It turns out, it's the legendary perfect foundation. Have you awakened some kind of special physique? He stared at Jun Moran, as if he wanted to see through him. As expected of the Holy Sun, you have guessed all this. Although he was thinking this, Jun Moran scratched his head and said innocently, I don't know what's going on. Not only has my cultivation speed increased, but my physical body seems to have become stronger. Seeing this, a smile finally appeared on Chu Xinghe's handsome face. You kid, it's a blessing after all your hard work. This is my token. If you need any training techniques, just go to the library and pick them out. After the words fell, a crystal-clear jade plaque appeared in Jun Moran's hand, with the Chinese character, Chu, engraved on it. Feeling the spirit treasure aura coming from the token, Jun Moran hurriedly bowed and saluted. Many thanks to the Holy Sun. The Holy Sun will enjoy eternal blessings and live as long as the heavens. May the Holy Sun quickly overcome the illusion and become the supreme swordsman. Hearing this, the corners of Chu Xinghe's mouth twitched, and he quickly turned around and looked into the distance again. For a moment, the venue fell into silence again. Just when Jun Moran was about to leave, Chu Xinghe's plain voice sounded again. Is there any other description of Senior Dugu's peerless sword manual? Forehead. Hearing the Holy Sun's inquiry, Jun Moran touched his nose in embarrassment. I just made it up so casually, do you really believe it? At this moment, his brain was working rapidly, thinking about how to make up random things. Got it. Jun Moran's eyes lit up, as if he remembered something. He hurriedly said, let him be strong when he is strong, let him be strong when the breeze blows on the hills, let him be horizontal when he is strong, and let the bright moon shine on the river. The 4th sword form is not to be an infatuated person. The 5th sword form is to close the heart and seal the door. The 6th sword form is to draw the sword and kill a woman. The 7th form of the sword is to cut through the world of mortals with one sword. The 8th form of the sword is to kill all those who betray your heart. The 9th form of the sword is to make those who do not love become gods. After he finished speaking, Jun Moran suddenly came back to his senses. He didn't even know what he had just said. Afraid that the other party would go crazy because of his words, he coughed lightly and wanted to recite the Tao Te Ching in his mind. As a result, he found that Chu Xinghe was stunned and kept mumbling. If you don't have a woman in your heart, you will draw your sword to the god of nature. If you don't have a woman in your heart, you won't be an infatuated person. The next moment, countless sword energy circulated around Chu Xinghe, and he fell into a state of enlightenment. Is this okay? Jun Moran was dumbfounded. Afraid of being accidentally injured by the sword energy around him, he ran down the mountain. Brother Jun. Master Jun. After walking out of St. Child Peak, a group of disciples greeted Jun Moran respectfully. Jun Moran took a long breath, straightened up quickly, and regained his composure. The Holy Son has an order. From now on, the Holy Son will be practicing in seclusion. During this period, no one is allowed to disturb him. Anyone who disobeys the order will not be punished. After the words fell, he raised the Holy Son token in his hand. Yes. Seeing the token, everyone hurriedly bowed in response. Seeing this, Jun Moran's heart was agitated, and he felt like a factory official holding a token and commanding the world. No wonder Zhao Gao, Wei Qiansui, Yu Huatian and others do whatever it takes to gain power. This feeling is so satisfying. Bah! I'm not a eunuch, what are you thinking? Shaking away the thoughts in his mind, he nodded with satisfaction to everyone. As if he felt that it was not enough, he shook the 2 long strands of hair in front of his forehead and said in a very pretentious manner, "Well, the journey of cultivation is like sailing against the current. If you don't make progress, you will retreat. If you work hard in cultivation, you must not slack off." After the words fell, he suppressed the corners of his mouth that were about to reach the base of his ears and strode away. At the same time, inside Qingyan sect, a burly disciple hurried to the sect master's residence. He shouted in panic, "Master, it's not good, it's not good." Hearing this, Tan Changfeng, who was sipping tea, frowned slightly, with a hint of displeasure on his face. How is it appropriate to be so flustered? The visitor didn't notice the other person's expression, so he hurriedly said, "Master, Junior sister said that if you don't release Junior brother Yi, she will commit suicide by taking poison." Tan Chengfeng put down the teacup in his hand and said coldly, "Did you die of poison?" "Youth. Brother Fan, I will not let my father hurt you. No one can separate us." Tan Qingzu clenched the porcelain bottle in her hand and sobbed softly. At this moment, the sound of footsteps approaching from far away interrupted her thoughts. "Mother, my daughter is unfilial. Not only has she been hurt by the bad guys, her father doesn't love me anymore. My daughter will come to see you right now." As soon as he finished speaking, Tan Qingzu opened the cork of the bottle and poured out a pill. At this moment, her face showed an expression of determination to die. Tan Chengfeng looked at his daughter's damaged right eye, with a trace of imperceptible disgust flashing in his eyes. However, because his disciple was following behind him, he still said sternly, "You fool! You will live or die for a man. Is this how you repay your father's teachings to you?" Seeing this, the young man who followed also hurriedly advised, "Junior sister, please don't be impulsive. It's just destroying one eye. With Junior sister's talent, it will not be difficult to break through the nascent soul stage and reshape the body in the future. Why should you do this?" Hearing this, Tan Qingzu's body shook twice, as if he might fall down at any time. Haha, now my appearance has been ruined, and my beloved has been imprisoned by my father. I even want to send him to the Tianjian sect to plead guilty. In this case, what's the point of living for me? I might as well just die. As soon as she finished speaking, she made a move to swallow the elixir in her hand. Since there is no point in living, I won't force you as a father. It's just that the poison in the mortal world in your hands doesn't seem to be able to kill you. Want to die? Then eat this. Tan Chengfeng took 2 steps forward and dropped a pill on the table. This, soul-eating pill. The young man looked at the dark green pill on the table and couldn't help but exclaimed. Soul-eating pill, a pill that can destroy the soul of a monk. Those who take this elixir will suffer extremely severe pain and damage to their souls, lose their consciousness in a short period of time, and become a walking corpse. This kind of elixir can not only kill people, but also take away bodies. In the world of cultivation, it is also an existence that makes people change their minds. Seeing his father actually taking out such a poisonous elixir, Tan Qingzu's left eye widened with disbelief on his face. Don't you want to die? Now that my father has granted you a favor, you should eat it. Listening to the cold voice in his ears, Tan Qingzu instantly broke through his guard. She swept the elixir away and roared in an incomprehensible manner. Tiger poison doesn't eat its seeds, but you actually want me to die. When my daughter was bullied, it didn't matter if you didn't support me. She's still so vicious now. I don't have a father like you. Crack. Accompanied by a crisp slap, Tan Qingzu spun around a few times and instantly fell to the ground. Evil. You are simply lawless. Tan Changfeng stared at the opponent with a gloomy face, the murderous intent in his eyes undisguised. Tan Qingzu did not notice her father's murderous intention. She covered her red and swollen cheeks. He roared, Tan Changfeng, you dare to hit me. I tell you, if you dare to hurt Brother Fan, I will never let you go even if I am a ghost in this life. Hearing this, Tan Changfeng was instantly angry and laughed. He, okay. Since you want to die so much, my father will help you too today. As soon as he finished speaking, he picked up Tan Qingzu and flew away into the distance. Tan Changfeng of the Qingyan sect has come to plead guilty with his rebellious female disciple. This sudden sound echoed in the sky above Tianjian sect, causing the eardrums of all the disciples in the sect to buzz, and they were unable to react for a moment. Even the senior officials of Tianjian sect were alerted and appeared in the sect's meeting hall one after another. On the first seat was a middle-aged man with an elegant temperament and an appearance somewhat similar to Chu Xinghe. There was no emotion or joy on his face. This person is the leader of the Tianjian sect, and is also recognized as the strongest person in the entire East continent. He is a powerful person in the late stage of integration, Chu Han. At this moment, the hot-tempered elderly couldn't help but said, Sect Master, the Qingyan sect has gone too far to bully others and dare to make the Holy Sun the laughing stock of everyone. Why don't we kill Tan Changfeng today, and I will lead the people to crush the Qingyan sect. When Tan Changfeng, who had just entered the meeting hall, heard this, he trembled with fright and almost turned around and ran away. In the end, reason defeated the inner fear. He carried the crying Tan Qingzu in his left hand and the half-dead Yi Fan in his right hand, and strode into the meeting hall. After casually throwing the two of them to the ground, Tan Changfeng raised his hands to Chu Han. He said with a guilty look on his face, Brother Chu, you and I have been friends for generations. We originally wanted to get closer to each other, but we proposed a marriage contract for this rebellious girl back then. I never expected that this evil beast would do such a shameless thing. Not only did it destroy the reputation of our sect, but it also caused the child of Xinghe to suffer so much injustice. Now I have brought these two evil obstacles and let your sect deal with them. After he finished speaking, he took out a storage ring and placed it respectfully on the ground. Speaking of which, Tan still has no way to teach his daughter. As an apology, I offer 50,000 top-grade spiritual stones and 1 million middle-grade spiritual stones. Please accept it, Brother Chu. Hearing this, Chu Han raised his eyebrows and stared at Tan Changfeng calmly. I have to say that the other party is a complete old fox. First, he came to apologize with an attitude of righteousness and annihilation of relatives, and then compensated with so many spiritual stones. I am afraid that the Qingyan sect has spent a huge price. In this way, it is equivalent to throwing the problem to their Tianjian sect. After all, as the leader of the righteous path, Tianjian sect would be unreasonable if he still refused to give up and even killed two juniors. Tan Changfeng was stared at by the other party, and he was afraid that the other party he had angered would be slapped to death. At this moment, a hearty laughter sounded in my ears. Ha 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 ha. As you said, the two sects have been on good terms for generations. How can this matter hurt their harmony? Hearing Chu Han's words, Tan Changfeng breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the other party wanted to save face, so he spent half of his net worth on this gamble. But, hearing this, Tan Changfeng's originally relaxed body suddenly stiffened. He hurriedly lowered his head and made a respectful gesture, waiting for the other party's next words. However, this matter will cause great harm to Xinghe. How these two pieces of garbage should be disposed of depends on the child's opinion. With that said, Chu Han did not wait for the other party to speak, and directly ordered, Come here, please invite the Holy Sun to the meeting hall. The next moment, a disciple walked into the hall and said respectfully, Sect Master, Mr. Jun is holding the Holy Sun's token and has already told the disciples in the sect that the Holy Sun is practicing in seclusion and no one is allowed to disturb him. Oh. Hearing this, Chu Han suddenly became interested. He knows his son best. Although he is easygoing and kind-hearted, he is very arrogant in his heart. Now he gives his personal token to someone else, which is enough to show the importance of the other person in his heart. He asked doubtfully, Who is Mr. Jun in your mouth? Without waiting for the disciple to reply, Elder Li hurriedly said, I know. The next moment, he was like a storyteller, vividly recounting Jun Moran's heroic feat that day. Have you not seen that boy pulled out the long knife embedded in his shoulder, and the blood spurted out dozens of meters away? He didn't even frown, but laughed loudly. Quote. Speaking of his excitement, Elder Li stood up directly and began to dance and gesture. When Elder Li finished speaking, an elder couldn't help but exclaimed, Good. I didn't expect that our Tianjian sect would have such a loyal and brave disciple. I would like to meet him. Even the sect leader Chu Han had a smile on his face. He directly ordered, since Xinghe has been in retreat, let's bring Jun Moran over. Yes. The disciple responded and hurriedly turned around and left. For a time, the entire hall fell into a deathly silence. Tan Chengfeng stood quietly on the spot, feeling as if he was sitting on pins and needles. It's not that he's worried about the life and death of the two evil beasts, but that he's afraid that he will be implicated. After all, if you lose your daughter, you can still have another one, but if you die, then you really have nothing. As for Yi Fan, who was lying on the ground half dead, his heart was filled with overwhelming hatred at this moment. First, he was thrown to the ground like a dead dog by his master, and then he was ridiculed as trash by the leader of Tianjian sect. Everyone present regarded him as an ant, and he, who considered himself a son of luck, could not accept it. Yi Fan secretly swore that when he improves his cultivation in the future, he must peel off the skin and cramps of all these people and refine their souls into magic weapons, so that he can relieve the hatred in his heart. However, the top priority is to escape from this place. Only by living can the shame of today be washed away. Thinking of this, he hurriedly called in his heart, System, system. However, the system seemed to have disappeared and there was no response. At this moment, a burst of footsteps approached from far away. Everyone followed the sound and saw a young man wearing a white robe and a handsome face stepping into the hall. When Jun Moran heard the sect master summoning him, he had rehearsed his lines and expressions countless times on the way. Therefore, when he entered the hall, he automatically blocked everyone's eyes. He held his head high, came to the center of the hall with a calm expression, and bowed respectfully. Disciple Jun Moran has met the sect master and all the elders. Chu Han's eyes were fixed on Jun Moran, and the shock in his eyes flashed away. Immediately, he said with a kind face, Jun Moran, I have heard about your performance in the past few days. You have a strong character and an innocent heart. It is very good. Hearing the sect master's praise, Jun Moran didn't dare to overdo it at all, and he saluted again. This disciple has been in the sect for 10 years. Thanks to the sect's unyielding care and dedication, I am so grateful that I don't know what the sect has ordered me to do. I am willing to go through fire and water without hesitation. At this moment, the burly old man, who had been closing his eyes to rest his mind, instantly opened his eyes. He stared at Jun Moran and asked with a shocked look on his face, Are you the person I brought back to the sect? Hearing this, Jun Moran looked at the other party, and the memory flashed through his mind. He instantly remembered the identity of the other party. It was Long Yuan, the great elder of Tianjian sect, a powerful person in the middle stage of integration. In line with the idea that it wouldn't be strange to be polite to many people, he bowed again. It is my disciple. I would also like to thank the great elder for bringing me into the sect to practice. I will deeply appreciate it. His tone is humble and his attitude is sincere, which makes people feel good about him. Quote. Hearing Jun Moran's answer, the elder seemed to have remembered something and hurriedly turned to look at the sect leader. But he found that the other party was also looking at him, with shock and a trace of unconcealable joy in their eyes. Sect Master Chu Han suppressed his inner excitement and said hurriedly, Jun Moran, now Sect Master Tan has brought someone to apologize. Unfortunately, Xinghe is in retreat again, so I have to ask you to come. What do you think should be done with these two people? Hearing this, Jun Moran looked at the half-dead Yi Fan and the trembling Tan Qingzu. His brain was running rapidly, thinking about the sect leader's intentions. Inadvertently, his eyes glanced at the storage ring on the ground, and he had some guesses in his heart. Tan Chengfeng should have made compensation, and then threw out the two culprits and left them to the disposal of Tianjian sect. However, as a powerful person in the integration stage, the sect leader could not take action against the two juniors, so he allowed himself to be the villain. But it just so happened that he was eager to kill these two people right away. Jun Moran, who thought he had seen everything, nodded towards the sect leader and made an expression that said, "I understand." Then, he took a step back suddenly, as if he had just discovered the two people on the ground, and looked at them with disgust. I also asked, why does a holy place like Zongmin have such an unpleasant smell? It turns out it's you, a pair of adulterers and adulterers. After the words fell, Jun Moran cupped his hands towards the sect leader. Sect master, these two people are shameless and morally corrupt. They are simply scum in the world of cultivation and a disgrace to the entire Dongzhou. In the secular world, these two people are like beings in a pig cage. As the leader of the righteous path, we, the Tianjian sect, have the obligation to eradicate the scum to prevent these filthy things from harming the people of the world. Jun Moran's words were filled with righteousness and indignation, as if he was the one being. Metropolitan. A group of elders. Jun Moran, who had already entered the state, flicked his sleeves and robe and looked at Tan Qingzu fiercely. You, a shameless and blind woman with a snake-like heart, dare to deceive my holy son's feelings and hurt his pure heart. Today, I will make you pay the price you deserve. After the words fell, Jun Moran took 2 steps forward, stretched out 2 fingers, and attacked the opponent's left eye. PFF'd. Blood splattered everywhere. Ah! Tan Qingzu covered his bleeding left eye, let out a shrill scream, and kept rolling on the ground. Everything happened so fast in front of them, and everyone looked at Jun Moran in shock. No one expected that a little follower of the Holy Sun would suddenly take action when facing the senior officials of the sect. In particular, the victim's father, Tan Changfeng, a soul formation stage master, was still present. This guy's courage is truly rare. Seeing such a scene, Yi Fan turned pale with fright. He has lost one hand and one of the most precious spheres. Now, who knows what that madman will do to himself? In fear, he kept shouting in his heart, "The system save me, I am willing to pay any price to save me." At this time, Tan Changfeng's face was gloomy and terrifying, and his teeth were gritted. It was not because he felt sorry for his daughter, but because he felt that his dignity had been greatly insulted by being provoked by such an ant-like figure. However, due to the many masters in the field, he could only suppress his inner anger and stand there in humiliation. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Blood dripped down Jun Moran's fingers and fell to the ground, splashing red flowers. There was a faint smile hanging on the corner of his mouth, as if he were a noble son of aristocratic family, giving people a strong sense of contrast. The reason why Tan Qingzu was not killed, but the other eye was crippled, was not because he was soft-hearted. But the other party has become the inner demon of the Holy Sun. In order to prevent the other party from taking the old path of darkness, he decided to leave this scourge to the Holy Sun to deal with it himself. As for Yi Fan, the son of destiny, Jun Moran didn't believe those bullshit words about how a child of destiny should not be killed, otherwise he would suffer backlash and even the world would collapse and be destroyed. He decided to kill a male protagonist to see if the world could not survive without him. Thinking of this, Jun Moran no longer hesitated. Knowing that villains die from talking too much, he suddenly raised his right fist and hit Yi Fan on the head. Suddenly, there were bursts of gas explosions in the air. Yi Fan felt the power that was comparable to the late stage of foundation building, and his eyes widened in horror. No! Bang! With a muffled sound, half of Yi Fan's head collapsed instantly, and blood spattered everywhere. Under the fear of death, he yelled, "System, uncle!" Upon seeing this, Jun Moran's lips curved into an evil smile, and the excitement in his heart became even stronger. What a bullshit destiny protagonist, I'm going to blow his head off. The next moment, Jun Moran raised his right fist again and hit it hard. Ah! After a scream, the entire ground cracked, leaving a shocking pool of blood. However, Yi Fan's body has disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Such a change made everyone in the venue horrified. Sect leader Chu Han couldn't help but exclaimed, "The power of space." Tan Changfeng's eyes widened with disbelief on his face. He never expected that Yi Fan, that evil disciple, would have such a way to save his life. The other party was really ambitious. What follows is endless fear. Now that the opponent is running away, if the Tianjian sect angers him, will he still be able to survive? Thinking of this, he hurriedly explained, Brother Chu, I swear on my personality that this matter has absolutely nothing to do with me. Besides, I don't have the ability to control the power of space, so I sincerely bring these two evildoers here today to plead guilty, and I also ask Brother Chu for a clear warning. Hearing this, Chu Han just looked at him coldly and said nothing. For a moment, Tan Chengfeng felt his scalp numb, as if he had seen himself being slapped to death. In desperation, his eyes fell on Tan Qingzu. Suddenly, a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. This daughter is already like this, and it would be embarrassing to keep her here. It would be better to send her away to reunite with her mother. In this way, he can still show some value, so that he will not waste more than 10 years of hard work teaching her. Brother Chu, in order to show my determination, today I will kill my relatives in front of everyone and personally kill this evil obstacle that ruins the family tradition. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly clapped his palm. The surrounding air suddenly rippled, attacking Tan Qingzu's body. Seeing this, Jun Moran shouted, Stop! Snort! Chu Hanhan snorted, but he didn't see any movement. The terrifying pressure in the air dissipated instantly. Seeing that the sect leader had such terrifying strength, Jun Moran jumped out instantly. He pointed at Tan Chengfeng's nose and yelled, You! It's true that the upper beam is not straight and the lower beam is crooked. This shameless thing almost destroyed my holy son's Taoist heart. You actually took it upon yourself to let her die so happily. I tell you, this unruly must die, but only in the hands of the holy son. If anything happens to my holy son before she comes out of seclusion, your Qingyan sect will never see the sun tomorrow. Hearing this, Tan Chengfeng didn't know whether he was scared or angry. His whole face turned from red to white, then from white to red, and finally turned into the color of pig liver. He gritted his teeth and stared at Jun Moran, as if he wanted to carve the other person's appearance into his mind. With many masters from the sect present, Jun Moran was not afraid at all. He cursed unceremoniously. Old man, what are you looking at? Do you still want to take action on the territory of Tianjian sect? Let me tell you, my holy son's mercy has been taught by the words and deeds of the sect master. However, the elders of our Tianjian sect may not all be kind people. If you dare to be so presumptuous, do you believe that you will not be able to walk out of the gate of our Tianjian sect today? Jun Moran's words were so powerful that those who didn't know thought he was some kind of peerless power. Everyone who saw his operation was stunned. Even the corners of sect master Chu Han's mouth twitched imperceptibly. Tan Chengfeng took a deep breath and gritted his teeth and said, Okay, Tan remembers that before the holy sun comes out of seclusion, there will never be any accidents to this rebellious girl. Brother Chu, Tan will take the first step and say goodbye. After he finished speaking, he grabbed Tan Qingzu, gave Jun Moran a meaningful look, and walked out of the hall without looking back. When the other party's figure disappeared, Jun Moran turned around and knelt on the ground with a plop. He said respectfully, Sect Master, Elders, please forgive me. I saw the enemy who harmed the Holy Sun before, and I was so disgusted that I lost my mind. He has also made various transgressions on his own initiative, and please ask the sect leader to punish him. Seeing this, all the elders looked at each other, with a brief look of confusion in their eyes. Elder Li, who was the first to come back to his senses, looked at Jun Moran blankly. The previous impression he had given him was that he was brave, loyal, and full of masculine spirit. Now it seems that this is not the case at all. He is definitely a person who can act based on people's faces, knows how to judge the situation and is extremely shameless. This kid is truly a talented person. Thinking of this, he hurriedly helped the other party out of the siege. Sect Master, this son is deeply trusted by the Holy Sun and has a sincere heart. Please consider that he is young. However, before Elder Li could finish what he said, Chu Han interrupted angrily, Okay, stop pretending to be a good guy. Is this sect leader such a pedantic person? As he said that, he turned to look at Jun Moran. Your boy is quite interesting. He is bold and careful, talented and has a strong character. Not bad, not bad. After the words fell, Jun Moran felt a soft force coming from his legs, and he stood up immediately. He glanced at Elder Li gratefully and saluted Chu Han. Thank you, Master. Chu Han smiled and nodded, turning to look at the elders. I have something to say to Jun Moran, please go out first. Hearing this, everyone stood up and left one after another. When Elder Li passed by Jun Moran, he patted him lightly on the shoulder. He said with a look of relief, good boy, I like you very much. As everyone left, only the sect master and the great elder were left in the entire hall. For a while, the atmosphere fell into silence. Jun Moran stood quietly on the spot like a good baby. After a while, Chu Han couldn't help but praise. Not arrogant, not impetuous, and has a good nature. Just as Jun Moran was about to say something, he felt his eyes blur and a figure instantly appeared beside him. The next moment, he felt his wrist being pinched, and a domineering spiritual power poured into his body. Although Jun Moran was nervous inside, he looked very calm on his face. He believed that the other party would not hurt him, not to mention that he did not have the strength to resist. Therefore, he allowed the other party's spiritual power to flow within his body. As time passed slowly, Jun Moran began to wonder if the other party was deliberately taking advantage of him because he was handsome. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a chill. The spiritual power in the body is abundant, and its strength is 10 times greater than the ordinary foundation building period. It is undoubtedly the legendary perfect foundation building. The most surprising thing is that your boy's physical strength is comparable to the physical training in the late stage of foundation building. What kind of physique did your boy awaken? The great elder let go of Jun Moran's wrist and asked with a surprised look on his face. Hearing this, Jun Moran couldn't help but feel secretly frightened. He was worthy of being a powerful person in the integration stage, and he had no secrets in front of the other party. However, he had no intention of hiding it, so he answered truthfully, the great elder's discerning eyes are as bright as a torch, and I deeply admire him. The physique I awakened is called the Shura war body. Shura battle body. The great elder and the sect leader looked at each other with expressions of surprise. The two searched the memories in their minds, but could not find any information about Shura's combat body. After a while, Chu Han asked hesitantly, what's so special about your Shura battle body? Jun Moran lowered his head and thought for a while. Anyway, he was now bound to the Holy Sun. He was a soft-boiled person in his previous life. It would be better to be honest and scheming in front of these big guys, as long as the existence of the system was not exposed. So, he told all the characteristics of Shura's combat body. Of course, he hid the information that the battle body great accomplishment can be reborn with blood. Even so, the great elder and the sect leader couldn't help but exclaimed at the same time. What? Is there such a powerful physique in the world? At this moment, Chu Han's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. If the person in front of him was not a disciple of Tianjian sect and was so loyal to the sect, he would not be able to help but slap him to death. There is no way, this kind of physique is really too evil, it is simply unheard of. After pondering for a long time, he said with a serious face, about the information about your Shura battle body, don't tell anyone after you leave this door. Jun Moran couldn't tell that the other party was protecting himself. So, he responded very respectfully. At this moment, the great elder pinched his wrist again, his eyes filled with blazing light. Boy, how about being my apprentice? The other party's actions made Jun Mo's face darken. He couldn't help but complain in his heart. Just accept a disciple, what's the point of all this fussing? At the same time, a trace of doubt arose in his heart. He knew very well how much he weighed. In his previous life, he was a soft-boiled boy, and now he was a follower of the Holy Sun. Why is it that even the powerful master in the combined stage is ready to accept me as his disciple? Could it be that I got the script of Shuangwen's male protagonist? Jun Moran's expression fell in the eyes of the great elder, thinking that the other party didn't know his strength. So, he squeezed the opponent's right hand and unconsciously increased his strength. Although I am getting old, when I was young, I, Long Yuan, was also a talented person in Yushu Linfeng, and was nicknamed Jade-Faced Flying Dragon. Seeing you now, I seem to see my former self, which also shows that you and I have a master-disciple relationship. What's more, I am following the path of physical cultivation. If I take action, even the sect master is no match for me. Quote. Hearing the great elder's words, the corners of Chu Han's mouth couldn't help but twitch. This old guy is so shameless that he starts to call himself a master. You only need to accept a disciple, but you also have to step on the leader of the sect. Jun Moran also thought about it seriously. Although the system bound the Holy Son, it did not prevent him from becoming a disciple. Who said that a small follower can't have a strong backend, and there is no conflict between the two? After wanting to understand everything, he no longer hesitated and fell to his knees in an instant. Disciple Jun Mo Ran pays homage to the master. Bang bang bang. After knocking his head 3 times in a row, a red mark appeared on his forehead. Seeing this, the great elder laughed heartily. Ha 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 ha, okay. Good disciple, get up quickly. After lifting Jun Moran up, the elder looked at him with a satisfied look, as if looking at a rare treasure. Since he has become a disciple, he is one of his own, and Jun Moran is not so restrained. He said coquettishly, Master, I wonder what kind of meeting gift you have prepared for your disciple. As he spoke, he stretched out his right hand and made a gesture of appreciation. The great elder was instantly amused by his appearance. You brat, you are quite the monkey spirit. After he finished speaking, he made a move with his right hand. The storage ring that was originally placed in the center of the hall instantly fell into the hands of the great elder. Seeing the other party's actions, Chu Han's eyelids jumped. The next moment, the other party's voice came to my ears. Sect Master, you also know that I am in the physical cultivation lineage, which usually consumes resources, so I don't have anything good in my hands. Isn't this a coincidence now? How about treating this as a greeting gift to my good disciple? Hearing this, the corners of Chu Han's mouth twitched. He had already planned to train Jun Moran, so naturally he would not object. It's just that now that these good people are done by the other party, it's really depressing. He said 2 words angrily. It's up to you. Unexpectedly, the great elder had no intention of letting him go, but instead looked at him with a smile. Sect Master, I have only received a precious apprentice after so many years, why don't you express your gratitude? Chu Han. You old thing, the autumn wind has hit me. Even so, Chu Han still took out a sword-shaped jade pendant and threw it to the other party. Seeing this, the great elder smiled even more happily. He handed the storage ring and jade pendant to Jun Moran, and said in a kind tone, My good disciple, this jade pendant contains the sect master's full blow. Even a strong person in the early stage of integration can kill you in an instant, and can save your life at the critical moment. Please thank the sect leader quickly. Quote. Hearing this, Jun Moran's eyes suddenly lit up. He bent at 90 degrees and said very respectfully, Disciple, thank you so much for the sect master. The sect master will live forever and live as long as heaven. I wish the sect master an early transcending tribulation and ascend to the supreme sword god. At this moment, he still doesn't know how huge resources there are in the storage ring. Otherwise, according to his temperament, he would definitely kneel down on the spot and kowtow to the sect leader several times before giving up. Listening to his grandiose words, Chu Han's originally tense face suddenly changed. PFF'd. As the leader of a sect, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. He coughed twice to cover up his inner embarrassment, and waved directly, Okay, I still have something to discuss with your master, you kid, get out of here. Jun Moran chuckled. Yes, disciple, get out of here. Then, he saluted the great elder again. Master, my disciples say goodbye. As soon as he finished speaking, his feet seemed to have springs on them, and he walked towards the door with light steps, humming a strange tune in his mouth. We, the common people, are so happy today. Seeing this, the great elder and the sect leader looked at each other with helpless and funny expressions. After a while, the great elder said in a deep voice, It seems that I did not find the wrong person. Hearing this, Chu Han sighed softly. Yes, the legacy left by our ancestors has come true. I'm afraid that this world of cultivation will not be so peaceful in the future. I just hope that this child will not let us down. Thanks for watching.